We're talking SEC win totals. Should Alabama be higher or lower? Let's talk about welcome back into Tide Talk Live. Stacey Blackwood, joined as always by my good buddy Jake Thomas. Jake, how you doing as we record this on a Thursday afternoon?
Doing great, brother. Just it's been beautiful weather here in Alabama, so it's been nice to get out. Try to get out before it gets too extremely hot, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's been great here in Alabama weather-wise here last week.
Yeah, we do have some storms apparently moving in. I don't know
Yeah,
when they'll be here, but
yeah.
that is springtime in Alabama. But
Mhm,
yeah, we got a jam-packed show today, Jake. First of
mhm.
all, welcome everybody. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you follow us at, and we would appreciate that. We're also on TikTok. We're on Instagram. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook. So just search Tide Talk Live and you can find us on all those platforms, and we would greatly appreciate a follow there. But we do have a jam-packed show. We are part of the Believe Network, and we appreciate those guys as well. But we're going to be talking about some recruiting. We're going to be talking some SEC win totals. Obviously, we'll dive deeper into what Alabama's win total is and kind of discuss that and what our thoughts on that. So we have a big show lined up for you guys, and we want to hear from you in the comments as well. Give us your thoughts on Alabama's win total here and what you think it should be, if they're going to go over or under that 9.5 that they are projected at. So before we get to that, Jake, I do want to talk some recruiting because the recruiting season is really starting to heat up for the class of 2026. The coaches are out on the recruiting trail right now, visiting with kids in their home or at their school. Starting, I think, next weekend through the entire month of June, there's going to be a ton of kids on campus for official visits for the rest of May and all of June. And then when we get to July, you're going to start seeing some commitments roll through for Alabama. I think it's going to be a massive month. I think they have a chance to have another top 5 class there in Tuscaloosa. And Kalen DeBoer and his coaching staff just continue to do a great job on the recruiting trail, finding the guys they like and really doing a good job of scouting and finding fits for their particular system, both on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball. And I think, Jake, as we talk about recruiting, I think two big names. A big topic last year, Jake, even though they finished number 3 in the country in recruiting,
Yep.
was the in-state recruiting and
Yeah.
how they were concerned about that for Kalen DeBoer and this coaching staff. Well, here we are one cycle later, and I think there's a great possibility and maybe a great likelihood that Alabama ends up signing the top 3 players in the state, which are all 3 5 stars prospects, and Anthony Tank Jones from St. Paul's in Mobile, the edge defender, CD Morgan, the 5-star receiver, and then obviously Xavier Crowell, the 5-star running back, who actually reclassified from 2027 to 2026 and is still a 5-star prospect, if that tells you anything about that dude. So I think there's a lot to be excited about in terms of not only in-state recruiting, but the job this coaching staff continues to do across the landscape of the country and recruiting really coast to coast. And they do a great job on the West Coast with those California kids. Nick Saban done that, and Courtney Morgan and Kalen DeBoer and all the coaches have done a good job of kind of continuing that cycle there in Tuscaloosa. But I do want to focus real quick, Jake, before we get to that SEC win total, where we'll spend most of this episode talking about Xavier Crowell and CD Morgan, because I think those two guys are, you never want to say locks, especially when they haven't even committed yet. But
Right.
if I was to put a class list together today of who signs in 2026, Crowell and Morgan would be on that list. And we'll start with Crowell, who was supposed to commit in late December, has now said he's going to commit before that. He's going to and this is coming off time where he spent a lot of time with Alabama coaching staff. Alabama feels really good about where they're at with Xavier Crowell, who, like I mentioned, is 5'10", 5'11", 205 pounds, a guy who should be going into his junior season this upcoming year, is actually going to be going into his senior year, and is one of the top players in the country. He'll be a consensus 5-star once the rankings are complete, maybe the top back, if not the number 2 back in the entire country, as a guy who's reclassifying. Alabama likes where they're at with him, and I feel comfortable predicting that he will be a part of this class for Alabama. And then C.D. Morgan, Jake, a massive receiver there at 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus pounds, big physical target with a wide catch radius. Another 5-star guy, one of the top receivers in the country. Right now, I think it's kind of tentative that he's going to commit on July 2nd. We'll see what happens with that. But at this moment, Alabama is the leader in the clubhouse. Steve Wiltfong from On3 is put his RPM for him to commit to Alabama eventually, or to be a part of this class. So Alabama feels really good about those 2 players here that are in-state prospects. And I think that's big news for Kalen DeBoer and his coaching staff, Jake. And real quick before we move on, I want to ask you this, Jake. Long term, do you think that in-state recruiting is as big a deal as what the people were making out of it last recruiting cycle when Alabama didn't do great?
No, I don't make much of a deal out of it. I mean, there are some good players in the state of Alabama, but most of your good players come from Texas, California, Florida, places like that. So, you touched on that. Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, them guys are in California recruiting heavy there. I think they've had a couple big recruits that's come from IMG Academy, which is in Florida. So, we have guys in the state that are elite talents. But if we miss on them, as long as we're filling with guys from, elite players from other states, I don't really care what happens in the state of Alabama recruiting wise, because as long as we get those players from wherever else in the country, that's all I really care about. I just want to get the guys that's going to fit that system that Kalen DeBoer and his guys want to run.
Yeah, and I think as the longer this staff is in Tuscaloosa, the more relationships they're going to be able to build within the state. I mean, they came in last year following the retirement of Nick Saban there in mid-January, and they were behind the 8 ball. Let's just be honest. So I mean, they were behind the 8 ball, and they had to do some catching up. And like you said, but they did a good job of filling those needs with out-of-state players. So if you finish inside the top 5, I don't care where the kids come from.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm an Alabama guy through and through. I want to sign, in-state prospects if they deserve to be signed.
Right.
But don't just sign them because they're from the state of Alabama. So I do think that was a little overplayed last year. I do understand the importance of building those relationships with those in-state coaches and future prospects from within the state of Alabama, because there is, like you mentioned, a lot of good talent in this state, despite having 5 million in population. I would say per capita, it's a top 5 state. Maybe not top 5, at least top 10 in the country for producing high school talent in football. So we do need to recruit the state of Alabama well. But like you mentioned, if you're filling those voids with other talented players and finishing inside the top 5 in the recruiting rankings, it's not that big of a deal. If you're poorly recruiting within the state and you're outside the top 15, then it might be concerning. But otherwise, I think it's just a little bit of overreaction from not only Alabama fans, but other fan bases as well.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention real quick, Stacey, is everybody talked about a drop off once Saban retired, with this coaching staff and recruiting and with everything, honestly. But that is not happening yet with recruiting, and I really don't think it will, because we have talked about, and it's kind of different now because of NIL and all that, but just the namesake of Alabama still sells itself to recruits. Because it's the greatest, program in college football history. And there's still people out there who want to play for Alabama.
Right.
So you're still going to get top tier talent, no matter who the coach is, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a great point. You got to think about these kids that are cycling through right now, how when they were kids, Alabama was the team.
Right.
I mean, so what college kids right now, it's 2025. So they were born in what? What's 2025 minus 18? Help me out real quick. 2007. That's the year Coach Saban took over, is when around the time they were born.
So they
So
grew up.
their entire childhood, they saw Alabama be the pinnacle of college football.
Right.
So you're right, Jake. That's not just Alabama fans saying, "Hey, it
Right.
would be awesome to play at Alabama." It's a fact. These kids
Mhm.
grew up seeing Alabama be the top program in the country, and it would mean something to them to have that opportunity to play there. So
Yep.
it's a national brand. There's no doubt about it. It is important to recruit the state well, but it's more
Mhm.
important to recruit the right guys, regardless of where they're from. And
Yep.
that's just kind of my take on that. But
Yep.
but Jake, I think that's enough recruiting talk. Let's get to this SEC win total, which is really kind of the main thesis of this episode, and we'll get to Alabama at the end. I want to run through all the teams real quick, Jake, and we pulled this list from a tweet that the Next Round put out. I don't know where they got this win total from. I'm sure it was FanDuel or Bet Online or one of the betting services put this out. But Auburn, Jake, 7.5. This is a team that's coming off a 5-7 record last year. They haven't had a winning season since Gus Malzahn. Can Hugh Freeze and this team get to 7+ wins?
I think it's going to be tough. Honestly, I'm not being a hater, but I'm not sold on one game of Jackson Arnold, who just ran all over Alabama, because there's a lot of factors that happened there. He did get benched in the middle of the season because he was inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh Freeze has a problem developing quarterbacks. Let's just be honest about it. So I think 6 is where they're going to be at. I really feel like he needs to get 8 to not be on that hot seat, though.
I would agree with that. I think
Mhm.
8 wins, and I think that if you look at their schedule, Jake, it's
Mhm.
really not that tough.
It's not.
I mean, they get Georgia and Alabama at home. Their
Mhm.
toughest out of conference game is week 1 at Baylor. The rest of them are small schools that they play.
Right.
There's no Texas.
Nope.
There's no Tennessee.
Mm-mm.
So I think they have as favorable a schedule as you can get in the SEC, but it's going to come down to quarterback play. I mean,
Right.
they have some skill guys now out wide with Cam Coleman and
Mhm.
the Sink. What's the kid they got in the transfer portal from Georgia Tech?
Yeah, I
His
can't
name
think.
just slipped my mind,
Yeah.
but a really talented player, one of the top players in the portal,
Oh, yeah.
before the spring. So they got some talent, and Keldrick Falk is one of the best edge players in the country.
Yeah.
So they have some talent, but if you don't have quarterback right, it's hard to get past 7-8 wins and become an elite program. So
Yeah.
at 7.5, Jake, I would probably take the under
Mhm.
and say that probably 7-5 is what their record is.
Yeah.
Georgia Bulldogs, Jake, 9.5.
Hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I really think it's going to be come down to quarterback play for them.
Mm.
Nate Frazier is probably going to be one of the elite bats in the conference. So he'll get plenty of opportunity. It's just going to come down to, who snatches the quarterback job and seizes it, and can they make enough plays for them? Because Georgia's defense was kind of lackluster last year. It was still good, but it wasn't up
Yeah.
to their standards. I think their defense will be a lot better this year, so it's going to keep them in games. But can that offense score enough to stay in those games?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on Georgia. But I would still, I mean, and you're going to see a theme of this. I think there's going to be a lot of 10-2 teams this year
Yeah,
in
me
the
too.
SEC, and I think Georgia's going to be one of those teams. So I'll take the over on Georgia. Kirby Smart's a proven winner.
Yep.
Except against Alabama for whatever reason. I'm not even throwing shade. It's the
No,
craziest thing. What's he,
it is.
1-9 or something like that, or
Yeah,
1-8, 1-7 or something like that,
yep.
1-6. But
It's
yeah. So
insane.
but I am going to take the over. I think they go 10-2. Then LSU, Jake, another big rival for Alabama. So far, we've gone through teams that Alabama is going to play.
Yeah.
LSU 8.5. Got Nussmeier coming back. Got a couple weapons coming back. Defensively, they were better last year, but they need to be better than they were. Where are you at with LSU, Jake? Because a lot of people were actually kind of picking them as sleepers as for a playoff team.
Yeah, they're a mystery. I think 8, maybe 9 wins for them. Gus, Nussmeier's proven, he's really good. If he he gets under pressure, though, he can start making mistakes. One guy for them, though, I really need to see come alive this year is Harold Perkins. I mean, we don't hardly
Yeah,
ever hear about him at
yeah.
all anymore.
He almost has the Deontay Lawson thing where he gets hurt all the time.
I know,
And I
yeah.
mean, he's got talent. He just gets hurt all the time.
Right. So their defense, I'd probably be a little bit more improved this year as well. But um, and I think Nussmeier can make the plays. It's just can that defense, if they get a lead late in the game, can that defense hold it for
Well, and what plagued Nussmeier last year was the turnovers.
them? Right.
And we saw that against Alabama. I think he threw a couple picks, had a fumble. So you can't do that and expect to beat good teams. So
Mm-hmm.
if Nussmeier can cut down the turnovers, I can see them, maybe contending for a playoff spot. But I am going to go the over of 8.5. I think they go 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are improved, but they probably just miss out on the playoffs, kind of like Alabama did last year. But I do think they get that over and get to 9 wins. Missouri Tigers, another team Alabama will be playing this year. They're at 7.5. They went 9-3 last year, if I remember correctly. They lose a lot, Jake. No more Brady Cook, no more Luther Burden. I just don't know about this team, Jake. I think off the cuff, I'm going to go 7-5. So I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I'm taking under as well. You lose a lot, and it's hard to, replace talent and guys like that. I mean, Luther Burden is one of the best wide receivers in the country, and you just don't replace that overnight. And it's going to be tough. Eli Drinkwitz is going to prove what kind of coach he is this year. But I would say 7-5 if I was a betting man.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with them as well. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels went 9-3 in the regular season. Kind of like they had a really similar year to Alabama last year, where really a couple disappointing losses is what kept them out of the college football playoff. Replacing Jackson Dart, replacing some weapons, defensively replacing Walter Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy on the edge, Prince.
Prince
Yeah, I can't. I'm not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't even gonna try to say his last
I
name.
know.
Trey Amos at corner. What are you thinking about Ole Miss, Jake? They're sitting at 8.5.
Again, they're replacing a lot of talent. Austin Simmons, they really believe in this kid. And I mean, we had one drive of him playing against, I think it was against Georgia, and they really thought that, what he did there was with the future. But when he gets more playing time, how is he going to react playing against SEC type defenses? You might be able to sneak one series of a newbie in there, don't know what their tendencies are, probably kind of threw Georgia for a loop for a little bit. But if you get a whole game with the same quarterback, the defense is going to at least hone in on it, and you get more film on the guy. Defense is going to get his tendencies and all that. So, I would say 8 to 9 wins is probably where they're going to be at. I don't see them losing to the likes of like Kentucky or Florida this year, though.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I'll say this: I think overall people are a little too optimistic about Austin Simmons. But I will add this caveat: Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing with quarterbacks, and
Yeah,
if he believes in Austin Simmons, then it's likely that kid's going to be pretty good. So I'm with you. I think they're hovering right there on the 8 or 9 wins, but I'm going to say they go 8-4 because even when Ole Miss is at their best, last year should have been their year with all the talent they had. And an experienced quarterback, and they for whatever reason, Lane Kiffin just loses a game or two every year that he shouldn't.
I know, it's
And
crazy.
so I'm on the edge. I want to say 9-3, but I'm going to go 8-4 and take the under here for Ole Miss. But they're probably the team I'm the least confident in what I'm picking, to be honest with you. Next up, Tennessee, Jake. Now, I don't know if this list come out before the Nico saga, but they're sitting at 9.5. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I'm taking under as well. You're going to start a new quarterback, going to have a new running back because Dylan Sampson has gone in the draft.
James
you
Pierce has gone from defense.
yeah, you lose a lot. I think they lost a couple weapons on the outside as well, wide
Yeah, they
receiver
did.
wise. So
Thornton
yeah,
lost another interior defensive lineman as well. So
yeah,
yeah, there are some big pieces from last year's team who really kind of backdoored their way into the playoff as well. And I'm not sure that they get above 8 wins. 8-4 is where I would have Tennessee right now.
yep.
A&M, Jake, 7.5. This is another team I struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of view them similarly to Tennessee. I see them as an 8-4 squad. And I just so I'm going to take the over. They're sitting at 7.5 according to this. I'm going to take the over and say they go 8-4.
Yeah, I can take the over on that as well. I think who's their coach? Just slipped my mind. I really
Elko,
like
Mike
him.
Elko.
Mike Elko. I really like Mike Elko as a coach. I think he's just going to take a couple years to get the players he wants in there. They still got some QB issues. I think they finally got that solved with the QB that played.
What's his first name? Reed is his last name.
Yeah, I know Reed. I can't think of his first name, but
Yeah.
but he's kind of like a Jalen Milroe type quarterback. He's got to learn how to throw, get better at throwing the short passes, and reading defenses and tendencies and stuff. Find out where the blitz is coming from. If they can do that, they can definitely be an 8 to 9 win team.
Arkansas, Jake. I don't think there's they're a 6-6 football team.
Yeah, I agree.
The nothing. I'm going to hold off on Florida. Kentucky 4.5. Ugh.
I mean, they were horrible last year. I don't know if
What they go last year? 4-8.
Yeah, so I mean,
I'm going to take the over. I think they go 5-7.
they may win 5, but I think this may be Stu's last year, and I think he's got Iowa on his mind.
Yeah. Mississippi State 3.5 after going 2-10 last year. I'll say this: I think they're going to be improved.
Yeah, they'll be improved.
I'm going to say they get the over. I think they go 4-8.
Okay. I was going to take 3 wins, but 3 or 4 wins. But yeah, I think I don't know what they have on their non-conference, but if they got two smaller schools, they should win those.
Yeah, and we'll do a deeper dive into all this later on in the summer, because we really haven't dove into these team schedules really yet, and we'll do that as the summer progresses. And that this is kind of off the cuff here.
Stacey, I would love to do this as a live and let people.
That would be that's a good idea for that. We'll do that and schedule that out. The Oklahoma Sooners, Jake, 6.5 is where they're sitting last year. Now I'll give this. I think Brent Venables is a good coach. They did bring in John Mateer, who was probably the best transfer quarterback in the portal this last year. I think they're going to be better offensively. They got to be better offensively. I mean, that's just Brent Venables is going to have that defense playing good football. They may not be the best defense in the country, but they're going to be good enough to keep you in ball games. And that schedule, though, Jake, it's tough. It's tough. I'm going to take the over, though. I think they at least go 7-5.
Yeah, 6-6, 7-5 is pretty good for them. I think Mateer is going to be a really good quarterback. Like you said, the defense is going to be good under Venables. Their question mark, much like last year's offensive line play, they've got to figure out how to block on that offensive line.
Can they keep receivers healthy?
Right. 5 receivers.
They lost their top 5 receivers last year. How is that even possible?
I don't know. I mean, you're just pulling people out of the stands at that point to just throw them.
I think, you could have got playing time.
Probably so. And I run a 10-5-40 or whatever, 440, So
they might have been better off with their one-legged receivers.
Yeah, probably so.
South Carolina, Jake, 7.5. This is a team who I'm surprised it's that low, because they're receiving a lot of hype because of the Lenore Sailors and the way they kind of finished the 2024 season. But I'm kind of sitting right there, and I see an 8-4 team, Jake. There's still some question marks on the offensive line. They lose a lot of talent outside of Dylan Stewart on defense, both on the defensive line, at the linebacker position, and in the secondary. So I just see too many question marks, especially on that defense and on the offensive line. They lose Rocket Sanders at running back. I I see a 7-5, 8-4 team. I'll take the over because of Lenore Sellers and his ability to make plays, and say they go 8-4.
Yeah, I'm agree with you, Stacy. 8-4 sounds about right for them. But I want to make the comment. I don't think anybody was buying South Carolina last year, and somehow Shane Beamer just had them guys playing
Yeah.
and playing hard, and it has to do with Lenore Sellers. Lenore's got to get better. He's another guy who's kind of like needs to learn how to throw the intermediate passes, get better at that, and reading defense. But if he can do that, he can be an elite player.
Oh
But
yeah, there's no doubt.
yeah. So they've got guys that just got to get more around the North Sellers. But the question marks, I think 8-4 is good for them.
Yeah. The Texas Longhorns, Jake, 9.5 is where they're sitting. Let the Arch Manning hype begin.
Yeah. Ooh, if he only goes and wins 8 wins, his first game or first year, ooh, I don't know.
I'll just go. I'm taking the over. I think they go 10-2. I
Yeah.
think they're going to be a good football team. They'll be right there in the mix for the playoff and in the national title hunt. I think they're an elite program under Sarkisian. If Arch Manning is anywhere close to what they say he is, then they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I was reading something earlier today. They've got like a two-headed monster at running back that they
Yeah.
feel like is going to be really, really good.
Mhm.
So if those two guys can get going early on in the season to help Arch out, this team will definitely be fine.
All right, Jake. The Vanderbilt Commodores kind of surprised some people last year. Obviously, upsetting Alabama was, might have been the biggest. That probably was the biggest story of the regular season in college football.
Probably the biggest story in Vandy history.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so.
Yeah.
But they're sitting at 4.5, Jake.
Mm. With Diego.
Yeah, I'm torn on them because I do think they caught some people off guard last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously caught Alabama off guard.
Yep.
And I'm not taking anything. They were for Vanderbilt. They were a really good football team, and Diego Pavia is kind of that X factor. But I wonder, after an entire season of film and preparation for Diego Pavia, if defenses are not going to be a little more prepared for what he does and what this Vanderbilt offense does, and it's just enough to slow him down enough to avoid those upsets that Vanderbilt was able to pull off last year. So I'm going to actually take the under and say they go 4-8.
Oh wow. Okay. I was going to say 5-7.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah. I do think, like you said, I meant mentioned it with Austin Simmons, but everybody's got a year's worth of Diego Pavia and that daggum shuffle, past that 8 Alabama up, and he did a couple other teams too.
Oh,
So I feel like defense is going to leave somebody in that hole where that guy's going to be sitting, and they're just going to play it a lot better than what Alabama did last year on how they scheme their offense, Vandy's offense, because it is a different type of offense, something that you're not used to seeing.
Right. All right. So, I wanted to leave Florida right before we do Alabama because I think Billy Napier and this Florida program is maybe the most interesting team going into this season.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a do or die season for Napier. They feel like they're finally right at quarterback with DJ Lagway. They have some other offensive weapons. They're going to be pretty sound and pretty good on defense. Their win total right here is 6.5, Jake. First of all, if they're at 6 or if they're at 7, I'm not sure Napier survives.
Right.
So, real quick, are you taking the over, the under? And what do you think the number is for Billy Napier to survive another year in Gainesville?
I think he needs at least get 8 wins, and I think DJ Lagway, if he stays healthy the entire year, and that's the big issue here. If he stays healthy, they can at least get 7 wins. That 8, they're going to have to upset somebody. I know the schedule is brutal like it was last year.
It's
so
tough.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
tough.
know who they're going to upset to get that 8th win. I think they can get 7, but that 8th win is going to be tough, I feel like.
Well, I know non-conference wise, they'll be playing at Miami. They'll be playing Florida State, obviously. I do think they can win those 2 games.
I do too.
And then, but man, that SEC schedule, they got to play LSU. I mean, they got to play Georgia. They got to play Texas. Now
Ole Miss again.
they do get some of those at home, which is
Right.
helpful. We saw that when they were able to upset Ole Miss late in the season
Yep.
there in Gainesville. So, Jake, I'm going to take the over, Jake, and I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go say the Florida goes 9-3,
Okay. Wow.
and I think as the season progresses, they're going to gain more confidence in Billy Napier. DJ Lagway, I think he's a special talent. I really
He
do.
is. He is.
I really think he's a special talent. I think he's going to be that X factor for them, and they're going to be one of the surprises in the league. And I think they go 9-3. Not sure they make the playoff, but they're right there on the edge, kind of like Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss were towards the end of the 2024 season.
Yeah, all depends on Lagway and his health.
Yep, no doubt, and that offensive line play. They've been poor on the offensive line for a few years. They've got to get that right. If they get that right, Jake, they can be a good football team.
I agree.
All right, Alabama 9.5. Going 9-3 last year, Jake, with 2 losses that were really just inexcusable. And there we could go on and on of why those happened.
Right.
But 2025, they're sitting at 9.5 at that win total. What are you taking?
I'm going over, and I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I think if you look at the schedule, and it's it's rough, and it's pretty tough schedule. If you just want to be honest about it, the one loss I see could potentially be Georgia. Now we could beat them, obviously, as well. But Alabama's got Vandy at home. They got a revenge game without that one. They got Oklahoma at home, another revenge game. Auburn, they got Voodoo down there, so that's going to be tough. We got Tennessee at home, another revenge game. So I don't feel like Alabama is going to lose those revenge games. Right. And there was a article or some kind of rumor, and it's just a rumor, so let me just put that out there, that Thomas Costello from Florida State, their new quarterback, he struggled in their spring game. He went like 3 or 14. They brought in a whole new coach and like offensive coordinator with Gus Malzahn down there. He's got Alabama history, and then they got the new quarterback. Florida State's going to be better,
Absolutely.
But I don't think they're up to the talent wise that Alabama's got. I mean, Stacey, we talked about a couple of weeks ago that the offensive side of the ball. I think Ty Simpson is going to surprise people. Alabama's locked and loaded at running back, and I've been hearing a lot about Daniel Hill. Feels like the coaching staff really loves the build of the running back like him. So I think he's going to have a special year. Wide receivers, I mean, we talked about them. We're 8 deep, and I don't know how we're all going to get on the field. And then defensively, how great they are defensively. I'm not trying to sound like a homer here. I'm just spitting facts.
Yeah,
this team is loaded, and I don't see how they lose one. I don't see how they lose 2 games. I think they're going to at least get 10 wins. So they're going to hit that over.
I would say 10-2 is what they'll be. Like I said, I see several teams going, or a handful of teams going 10-2. And I think that's what Alabama goes. It's so hard to win more than that in a regular season.
Oh, it is.
When you're playing 8 SEC games and then 2 of your 3 non-conference games, or 2 of your how many non-conference? There'll be 4 non-conference games.
Yeah.
2 of them are against Power 4 opponents in Florida State and Wisconsin, and one of those is on the road. So that's a tough 10-game stretch there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's hard to go better than 10-2. Would I be shocked? No, but 10-2 is the sweet spot for me. The schedule is not the easiest in the world. It's not the toughest in the world. Mm-hmm. I like what you said though. I believe in Ty Simpson.
Yep.
The rest of the offense is basically back from last year.
Pretty much. Yep.
And plus some key additions that improve the roster. Yep. And then defensively, Jake, you lose Jahad Campbell. You lose Malachi Moore, you lose Tim Smith.
Yeah.
And Q Robinson, but Q Robinson missed half the season anyway.
Yeah, he got hurt.
And Alabama was still able to be a productive defense. So I think this Alabama defense is going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty this year. And that's going to keep them in a lot of football games. And Like you mentioned, I really like the balance this offense could have with the running backs they have and the receivers they have as well. So I'm
Yep.
going to go take the over for Alabama. I think they go at least 10-2. And like we said, guys, we'll do a different show where we have a more detailed look at everybody's roster, or not roster, but schedule,
Yep.
where we can kind of give a better breakdown and maybe prediction on everybody's record. But that's something to do later in the summer once we get through media days and get closer to fall camp, and everybody's rosters finalized. They got all their freshmen there and all that stuff. So we'll talk more about this throughout the summer months. There's going to be a lot of content here on Tide Talk Live throughout the summer. We're going to try to do at least 2 shows a week throughout the summer months, leading up to the college football season, which we cannot wait for. Also, I do want to say prayers to Wimp Sanderson
Yep.
and his family with the loss of his wife, the former Alabama basketball coach. So prayers for them. Softball teams in South Carolina right now. Game 1 is underway actually right now. Alabama had a 1-0 lead in the first inning when we got ready to record this. Don't know what's going on after that, but great job of the ladies here on the back end of the SEC schedule.
Oh,
Jake started off 5-7 in conference play. They're 6-3 since then, and have a chance to finish above 500. They're 11-10 going in conference play going into the South Carolina series, and of course, the baseball team is having a really good year as well. And shout out to Rob Vaughn and those guys.
Yeah, I was going to mention that outside of Nate O's, the Rob Vaughn hire is probably one of the best, and that Greg Byrne has done at his time at Alabama.
No doubt about it. That's why I trust the hire of Kalen DeBoer.
Exactly.
Until Greg Byrne makes a hire that I'm just like, what is that? I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to trust in him. I think he does a great job of seeing what particular coaches could be at Alabama and what that looks like. So I have a lot of confidence in Kalen DeBoer. There's no reason for Bama fans to panic, and they should be excited about what this era could be of Alabama football, because I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be, sniffing the playoff. I think they're going to be in the playoff. I think they have a chance to win the playoff. So I have confidence.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to mention before we get off, Stacey, is kudos to the coaching staff for not having a single scholarship
Absolutely
player go to the portal. They kept the whole team there.
I think that's all the proof you need that these players, and he didn't have a coach leave either. That was wanted to that the coaching staff, that Coach DeBoer wanted to return. That just shows you that these players and these coaches believe in Coach DeBoer, and I believe in him as well. And I'm really excited about this season. But that's going to wrap this show up, guys. We didn't really mean to go as long as we did, but we really enjoyed it. Can't wait to dive into more stuff throughout the summer months. Please do like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. We're closing in on 3,000 subscribers, so help us reach that goal before the college football season starts. Let's do it. It doesn't cost you anything to do it. So just smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you turn that bell notification on so you do get notified when we either upload or go live. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. We are there, free and available. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Jake, enjoyed it. Can't wait to do it again. We'll see you soon. Until then, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.